A very distinguished American pianist and educator, Samuel DILWORTH-LESLIE. Professor Samuel DILWORTH-LESLIE was born in Savannah, Georgia, where he began playing the piano at the unbelievably young age of 3. He was just lying around doing nothing for the until then. He was graduated from New York City High School of Music and Art, and later went to Manhattan School of Music, where he received his bachelor's and master's. He then also received a Master of Arts degree from Columbia University. He has studied with the formidable Nadia Boulanger, and he studied the complete works for piano of Fauré. We want to get into that later, Sam, about Nadia, the extraordinary Nadia Boulanger. Did you ever study any organ with Nadia Boulanger?
No, only piano.
Yes.
Only piano.
And to go on, he studied also with Mieczysław Munz and with also another formidable figure in New York piano pedagogy, Dora Zaslowski. He has had public master classes with Nadia Boulanger, Robert and Gabi Kasetsur, Clifford Curzon, Nikita Magalov, and one Otto Rubinstein. He's performed in the USA, Europe, and the Caribbean. He was the first pianist to perform in a single series the complete works of Fauré in the USA, which was at Rutgers University, and I don't know if we've brought out the fact that you are the director of the piano department of Rutgers College of the university. He also has played them in Paris, the complete piano works of Fauré. We're going to be listening to works of Fauré on this broadcast, and also next week more of Fauré performed by my special guest here in the studio, Samuel DILWORTH-LESLIE. And the works have been recorded, complete piano works, for Pavan Recordings, and we may hear about that shortly. There has been a Fauré, what would you call it, marathon of works of Fauré, or were they just the piano works, or were they also other works that were done
At Rutgers, you mean?
Yes.
No, there were only the piano works.
Did you play
piano
them
solo.
complete?
I played,
yourself?
yes, all 58 works.
You didn't let anybody sneak one in?
No, that one I decided to do myself.
How many concerts does it take to play the complete
Well,
works?
some have done it. One other person, I would say, did it in 3 concerts in New York. But I found that 3, I think the music was a bit too much, so I divided it into 4 concerts. And it was long enough so that people would not tire and could enjoy enough of Fauré and go away and come back for another recital,
Yes.
you see.
Well, I happen to be very fond of the music of Fauré, and I think we're hearing more of it all the time. The great works, of course, like the Requiem, are heard very, very frequently. And this is something that I think a lot of people will decide is what Fauré sounds like. There is quite a scope to the music of Fauré, though, isn't it? It's not just the dreamy, sweet, lovely...
No. In fact, there's a misunderstanding of his music, because there is a belief that it does not have too much depth. And I've insisted that it has a great depth, and that there's a lack of understanding of how to interpret his music. One can overdo a thing, or you cannot do enough for something. And I think with Fauré's music, the pieces that we've heard, for piano especially, I think that they have been mistreated. They have had too much rubato. They've had a very salon treatment. And I think that's the thing that damages the music.
Where do you suppose this comes from? From the fact that there are amateur performances, or because of an old style of performing?
Well, it's partially an old style, but I think that when one hears some of, say, Chopin's pieces, they think of the salon, and so they begin to feel as though they're at liberty to do anything with an arpeggio or with a phrase. They call it freedom, but there is no freedom, because they don't. have a sense of limitation. That's
That
a
is
tough
a-
one.
Yes.
Yes, but I understand that, you see. Because I really feel that before you can really be free, you must know the rules, you must know how far you can go and you cannot go. And when you know the rules, you're able to bend them slightly, but not out of proportion. And with the works of Chopin, the works of Fauré, there's been a great disservice by the interpretation, because they have been treated to rubato, and there's a misunderstanding there too. And so it cheapens the music, you see.
How well did you know the music before you studied with Madame Boulanger? Did you?
I did
had
not
you already
know the
prepared
music.
Oh,
No,
really?
I did not know. In fact, I was very impressed. I was given the 13th Nocturne of Fauré, which is impossible to play as far as Mademoiselle Boulanger goes. No one can play it. It is very sparsely written, but not very many notes. But it's very difficult to put together for the balances, the style in general. And so that I was very interested in, because it was impossible to play. And from that point on, I studied a few more works. I think in 1961, a Bacharach Nocturne Impromptu. And I began to see a great substance in the music as Boulanger taught it to me.
Yes.
See? And through the years I would study the works, play them on concerts, a few pieces at first, and then I'd go back and study some more with her, and finally it came the 50th anniversary of Fauré's death in 74. And I thought it was very fitting, since people did not know his piano music, with the exception of the theme and variations and some of the, maybe a handful of his pieces. I thought it would be a great idea to let people hear the complete scope of his piano works, but not in the usual fashion.
What is the usual fashion?
The usual fashion is to dream, to apply so much rubato, to make it as though it's a dessert only.
Mm-hmm.
See, and one can't take but so much of that, you see, with any composer. And then there's another discovery I made, that Fauré is unusual because he is one of the few composers who will treat his bass line as a melody. And the melodic lines are so long, I think they're the only other composer who would have lines equally as long as Fauré, probably Bach. But Fauré, the melody, the soprano is miles long. The bass is a melody in itself. It's not treated just as the foundation of a chord. It moves.
What about
No.
this work that we're about to hear, which is also possibly the most famous of his piano works, but not
No.
exactly in the form that we're about to hear it,
No.
the Ballade?
Well, that it is a very difficult work, and it's very seldom heard for piano solo, and for good reason.
Although that was its original form.
It was the original form. In fact, Saint-Saëns took the manuscript to Liszt, and Liszt took a look at the first two pages, and he said it's too difficult.
And that's the good
Yeah.
reason why it's not performed.
But the difficulty there was not in the technical aspect of the piece, because Liszt could play anything, but it was the approach to French way of thinking, the French thought, which was kind of foreign to Liszt at the time. He was very German in his understanding, you see. And so this takes a sort of a serenity and an understanding of French culture, the refinement, the what I call the depth of the French thought. And so that would be very difficult for some people,
Mm-hmm.
you see. And so that's where the famous saying about the difficulty of the composition is.
Well, may we
with
hear
us.
that now then,
Sure.
Sam? I certainly look forward to hearing this lovely, lovely work of Gabriel Fauré. Fauré's Opus 19, the Ballade, in its original solo piano version, performed by my guest here in Studio C, the distinguished American pianist Samuel Dilworth-Leslie. We heard the very lovely and formidable Ballade of Gabriel Fauré, his Opus 19, performed by my studio guest, the distinguished American pianist Samuel Dilworth-Leslie. Next week, we will hear two more works of Fauré played by Mr. Dilworth-Leslie. Thank you for listening.